Hello my precious little dragons, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I am going to be doing the Book Addictions Check by Merphy Napier here on YouTube. She is one of my absolute favorite booktube channels. She's just so sweet. I really appreciate her opinions, and just whenever she reviews things, it's just really fun and I enjoy it. And so I saw her do this tag and I was like, I want to do that. So it's basically just all about books. So let's get started. Question number 1. What is the longest amount of time you can comfortably go without picking up a book? So I said a physical book, I've gone weeks, but any stories at all in any medium, probably a week max. I have to have like some type of story in there just to get my fill. But it is not always in a physical medium because that's just not always convenient for my life at the moment. Question number 2. How many books do you carry on your person, physical or device, at any one time? I'm not going to include textbooks in this number because that would raise the mean considerably, because I always am having to take like a textbook with me somewhere so I can get some reading in. But if I'm just talking like stories or just non-textbook, I would say between 1 to 3 across all devices. I usually have at least one audiobook running. I usually have a physical book in there, and then sometimes I'll have like 2. It just depends. Question number 3. Do you keep every book you buy or receive, or are you happy to pass them along to make space for more? So I keep almost every single book. I struggle to get rid of any books. I have even kept books I absolutely despise because people I love gave them to me. I just don't get rid of books. If I declutter a book, it's because it really just means nothing to me anymore. Or like I did get rid of like some of my more like children's books, like just like pass them on like a few years ago. But even some of my children's books, I actually do still have quite a few children's books, but those were ones I intentionally got. But like books from my childhood, that weren't like nostalgic, and I was just like, this is just taking up space and it's not really like for me anymore. It's just not there. Some of those I've passed along, but just in general, I don't get rid of books. I just don't. Question number 4. How long would you spend in a bookshop on a standard visit? So I would say probably at least an hour. Longer if I have time to like sit down, order coffee, read whatever book I've inevitably bought. Some of them tend to be shorter just because I'm running in just to look around, but I would say an hour is probably a pretty standard amount of time. Number 5. How much time per day do you actually spend reading? Okay, so without textbooks, I would say 15 to 30 minutes a day. Try to make room for reading at least that amount of time. It's part of my self-care plan, which for this semester at least is an assignment in my intervention class that I have to keep track of, which I'm doing. I'm doing better at some things than other. Reading pretty consistently every day has been one of the things I've been doing pretty well on that list. The exercising one has been less of a success, but that's beside the point. So with textbooks, articles, grading, all of that stuff, I would say it's actually closer to 2 to 3 hours at least a day. There have been some days where I've literally been reading like the entire day. Like if it's my free day and I have a particularly heavy textbook week, like there have been times where I'm literally reading like 10 chapters plus, 5 or 6 articles, plus having to grade for my TA job. Like I would say it's been upwards of like 8 to 10 hours some days straight reading. So, I mean, it varies. Number 6. Where does the task picking up a book appear on your daily to-do list? So for this one, I would say I kind of alluded to it in my last one. Try to make, like excluding textbooks, which are automatically in high priority, I'm more likely to use audiobooks nowadays, so I still put that under picking up a book. But either way, it's in my morning get ready routine or my evening winding down routine. And then if I drive somewhere, I always have an audiobook on. For physical books, it's just as mentally needed and as time allows sort of thing. But it does fall somewhere between like medium to high priority, just depending on what you're talking about. Number 7. How many books do you reckon you own in total, including ebooks? So I believe my last actual count where I like went through and counted every single book I owned, because I'm a mad woman, I believe it was last summer, and I was at 350 books. Well, 351 technically. I have not recounted since then, but I have gained many physical and ebooks. I just went through Amazon and looked at all of their free ebooks, and I collected quite a few. So I would say I am at least at 400. I would suspect I am probably past that by now, combining everything all together. But again, I haven't counted in a while, so I would just say like 400 plus. Question number 8. Approximately how often do you bring up books in conversation? So this vastly depends on who I'm talking to, but I would say still pretty regularly, because I just like to talk about, you know, if people ask you what you're doing for fun, what you're enjoying, like, are you binging anything? And I'm like, oh, I'm reading all these books, or oh, I'm reading this story. Like, I tend to find ways to bring them up in casual conversation. Like, there'll be like I even bring them up in class. I'm like, oh, I read a book that was related to this. You know, I tend to find ways to bring it up. 9. What is the biggest book, page count wise, you have finished reading? So I think, actually, I wonder, hold on. Okay, yeah, no competition. Okay, so yeah, by far the biggest book I have finished is Les Miserables, which I have the Penguin Classics edition. So it is at a whopping 1,232 pages. So it is massive. It took me a whole summer to read. I have not since returned to it because I read it the summer I did study abroad in Japan, and so I have not read that book since I was 15. I should probably reread it at some point, but just that one takes a lot of mental energy to work up to, at least for me. 10. Is there a book you had to get your hands on against all odds? So searched bookstore, online digging, stalked author, etc. And I'm like, I can't really think of anything that I really went to extreme lengths to get a specific book. The only thing that like sort of fit was when Inheritance, which is the last book in the Inheritance cycle, came out. My friend and I signed up to go to one of the like book tour events, and so we were like by the computer and like, we have to get this, because we had been following the books for so many years. It was like a huge part of our childhood, and it was the last one, and we're like, we're going to see this. So we got the tickets and we went all the way into the city to see Christopher Paolini at the event and get our books. Like, we got our signed copies of Inheritance, and then we also got a couple of our other copies of the other 3 books signed as well. So that's really cool. I still look back on that fondly. But I mean, that was just a matter of, you know, signing up online. So I mean, it wasn't like ridiculously against all odds. It was just like, that was like, okay, let's get him when it comes out. Like, we don't want to dawdle because there's limited spots. So number 11, is there a book you struggle to finish because you refuse to DNF? So the only one that truly fits that is probably Bulletproof Mascara by Bethany Maines, which I did a book look on it earlier this year, and that was the only reason I didn't DNF it, because that book was pretty problematic, and so I wanted to finish it for the review. So that is why I struggled through that. So I will link it up above if you are curious about that specific one. So that was the only one that truly fit the requirements, but I wanted to do an honorable mention of The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gower. That one I did technically DNF, but I was almost done with it, honestly. I had less than a fifth of the book left, and I had been, like, it took me almost a month to get there because it was just dragging and I did not like it. And my mom was like, just stop reading it. You don't have to finish every book. And I was like, I have to finish the book. And then finally, like a month in, I'm just like, I was so tired, but I was like pretty close, I felt like, and I gave it like one last chance. I skipped ahead, which I almost never do, but I skipped ahead to the end of the story, like at the very last chapter, because I was like, I'm gonna read the last chapter and see if that gives me enough to finish, like if that gives me enough gumption to finish, and it didn't. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. So I was like, I mean, not to the point where it was like falling action, but I was getting pretty close to done considering how big the book was, and I was just like, I can't take it anymore, I have to be done. But I wanted to make sure that I got that honorable mention in, because that was very much a struggle bus sort of book. Number 12, what are 3 or just some of your main book goals for 2021? So I didn't really have that many. My main goal is just to keep up with reading for fun and keep up with making videos for this channel, because honestly, that's about all I can really promise myself realistically is just to like keep up with some aspect of reading for fun, just as a form of self-care. I think anything beyond that, especially getting into my second year of my PhD program, would be a little, like, I think that'd be asking too much of myself. Like, if I can do more, that's awesome. Like, if I can set a specific goal and reach it. Yeah, so that's pretty much my only real goal for next year for reading. I did set a goal of 50 books this year, which I'm definitely going to hit and probably pass. I don't know that I'll get that much done next year, but I got quite a bit done this year, which I'm happy with. Number 13, have you ever had the privilege of converting someone into a reader by inspiration or your incessant nagging? So I'm not sure I'd say converted, but I highly encourage audiobooks as alternatives for my friends that reading physical books tends to be a struggle, and I'd say I had at least an influence or made a difference in that sense, just getting people to read a little bit more. I don't know that I've ever really changed someone from I hate reading into I love reading, or even I'm ambivalent towards reading to I love reading. I just wouldn't go that far, but I've, you know, done some stuff. And last question, number 14, describe what books mean to you in 5 words. So this took me a little bit to think up, but the 5 that I settled on were solace, knowledge, imagination, transportative, and growth. I wanted to somehow get empathy in there, but there wasn't really a way to describe books, like describe how books encouraged empathy, so I settled on growth because it was like it helps me grow in empathy but also in other ways. So those are my 5 words for what books mean to me. So that is pretty much all I have. I just wanted to do a quick little video telling you all about my love of books, basically. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you to, I think it was Merphy that started this one, but either way, I got it from her. So thank you for doing it so I saw it so I could do it. And if you want to do this tag, or just let me know down below any of the answers to these questions, go ahead. I would love to hear from you. That'd be awesome. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day. Stay magic, keep reading. I love you all so much. Goodbye.